Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our public talk this afternoon. We are privileged to have you today. I'm called Adrien Chirabo, as I work as a regional projects officer for the Plan Vivo Foundation. I live and work here in Kampala, Uganda. I would like to take this opportunity. As you are already aware, as per our agenda, we are a few minutes late, but allow us to, first of all, introduce our speakers this afternoon, and then we'll have the official opening of the public talk once the representative that is supposed to do this is here. We apologize for starting late. Please bear with us. I'll start by introducing our speaker for the first speaker on the program, who is Miss Toro Shah. Toro is a Kenyan born and raised. She currently resides in the UK, where she recently completed a PhD in life sciences with Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew and Imperial College London. She conducted in-depth fieldwork in Tanzania to better understand the poorly known taxa, ecology, threats, and conservation status of an African plant group. Prior to this, she worked as a curator botanist at the Kew Gardens, and she holds a master's in science degree in plant diversity from the University of Reading, where she researched on assessing the conservation status through indicator species in the Naimani Mountains in Mozambique. And she's passionate about conservation, particularly in Africa, where working with innovative local partners and communities is so important to drive much needed conservation finance towards biodiversity, conservation, and restoration. That is Toro Shah. She'll be joining us online, and she'll be giving us a brief background to Plan Vivo's standard, that PV Nature standard, that she'll talk to us in detail. Our second speaker this afternoon is Mrs. Diana Nalwanga. Diana works with the Plan Vivo Foundation as a regional biodiversity projects officer for East Africa. Her main role is to support the development, certification, and implementation of biocredits projects under the Plan Vivo Biodiversity Standard. She has over 20 years experience in conservation of biodiversity with special interest in avian conservation, as well as community conservation and livelihoods development. Diana holds a PhD in environment and natural resource management from Makerere University in Uganda, and her focus was on conservation of biodiversity in farmlands of Uganda using birds as indicators. Diana has previously worked with Nature Uganda, one of our hosts today, this afternoon, the BirdLife partner in Uganda. She worked as a director conservation science and policy in charge of the biodiversity conservation and community conservation programs of the organization. She's also has worked with EcoTrust, the Environmental Conservation Trust of Uganda, where she's heading the biodiversity program with one arm in their triple win model composed of biodiversity conservation, community livelihood development, and climate mitigation and adaptation. Diana's current interest is also in promoting finance for biodiversity conservation and the trickle down of this conservation finance to the grassroots indigenous communities at the center of landscape restoration and conservation. Ladies and gentlemen, those are our speakers this afternoon, and I would like to take this opportunity to hand over to our first speaker, who is Toro, who will be briefly introducing the background to Plan Vivo and the Plan Vivo Nature Standard. We are also having another group of participants who are joining us online, in addition to those of us that are in the room this afternoon. For the onliners, we are in a very packed room with a big audience, and I'm sure you'll be seeing some of them as those in charge of technology change between online and the physical meeting. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Adrien. Good afternoon or good morning to wherever you're dialing in from. I'm Taro. I'm the Biodiversity Coordinator at the Plan Vivo Foundation, and thank you for the invitation to present here today, along with my colleague Diana. Today, we're going to give you a talk on biodiversity credits, showcasing an opportunity to deliver impact for nature, climate, and people through an inclusive nature-based approach. Next. So for today's talk, I'm going to start by giving an introduction to Plan Vivo and telling you a little bit about the development of our new Plan Vivo Biodiversity Standard, which is also known as PV Nature. I will hand it over then to Diana to talk more about the technical aspects of how we quantify biodiversity trends under PV Nature. I then will talk a bit about the market opportunities for biodiversity credits, and finally pass it back to Diana for showcasing a case study in the Ugandan context of a project led by EcoTrust regarding corridor restoration. I hope we'll also have some time towards the end for some discussion and a Q&A. Next. Great. So for those of you who are not familiar with Plan Vivo, we are a charitable foundation with over 25 years of experience supporting smallholders and local communities to develop sustainable land use projects. Today, the foundation currently operates two standards or certifications. The first is the Plan Vivo Carbon Standard, operating under the voluntary carbon market, which has been operating for over 25 years. And more recently, we have launched the Plan Vivo Biodiversity Standard, which is also known as PV Nature, building on the model of the Carbon Standard. And through the Carbon Standard, particularly, we operate a very unique model, which puts the smallholders and communities at the center of the project design through participatory implementation and project governance. Next. So through the Plan Vivo Carbon Standard, the projects that are certified under this certification over the last 25 years have been delivering significant impact. This includes over 8 million tons of carbon dioxide emission reductions, over 274,000 hectares of land under sustainable management, and $34 million of finance channeled directly to communities on the ground. This is also coupled with over 164,000 people actually involved within the projects themselves, $52 million directed to the projects in general, and to date, over 25 million trees have been planted. And this is through the impact of the carbon projects. You can see here on this map, this impact has been delivered by lots of projects across the globe, a significant portion centered in East and Southern Africa. These projects are really pioneering and leading the model of nature-based solutions and participatory approaches towards nature-based solutions. And I would really encourage people to take a look at our website to understand more about the projects, the different landscapes and the different community that are leading on these pioneering and inspiring projects. Next. So through the learnings of these projects over the last 25 years, Plan Vivo has been trying to expand its reach more recently through the development of the Plan Vivo Biodiversity Standard, which is called PV Nature. So building on this trialed and tested model, the values and experiences through community-led projects, and also through the increased recognition of the current scale of biodiversity loss and the current biodiversity crisis we are facing, we want to build and learn from the lessons in the voluntary carbon market so that we are ensuring this new market, these new biodiversity credits are based on high integrity, with credible claims associated to the purchase of these certificates, and the certificates to be issued through credible mechanisms such as certifications and standards like PV Nature. Next. So the model that we operate is intended to be holistic, so ensuring that we're building resilience through nature, climate, and people together. That the approach is transparent and accountable, particularly for Plan Vivo. We ensure that the benefits are equitably shared with the indigenous peoples and local communities. We have a requirement where 60% of the income must be returned directly to the communities through a participatory benefit sharing mechanism. And that the outcomes from the projects are real, robust, and verifiable, so that we know that the goals are, the impact is actually leading towards achieving goals for nature recovery. And this model is being implemented and exemplified through community-led projects over the last 25 years within the voluntary carbon market. Next. So just a little bit to explain how the projects are designed. There are lots of key requirements, but some of the main ones are around land rights. All the projects need to ensure management and land rights for the project area are held by the members of the community, whereby up to 30% is able to be managed by an outside entity. In some cases, this can be more than 30%, but additional guidance and requirements are required to be followed under the Plan Vivo Biodiversity Standard. In terms of land management, the participants should have the right to manage the land within the project, and this is either through securing land tenure, either customary land tenure or more nuanced agreements between participants and landowners. And finally, the project development needs to be nature-based, where interventions and activities are centered around restoration, conservation, or improved land management. Next. So more specifically about PV Nature, you can check out the full project requirements on our website, but just to highlight a few around the project design, we require all projects to have in-depth stakeholder engagement processes, particularly applying the principles of free, prior, informed consent. We ensure that the projects have a strong safeguarding and risk mitigation plan, both linking to social and environmental risks. The project needs to demonstrate a realistic theory of change or a project logic over the project period, of course, incorporating adaptive land management plans. And they have to have associated monitoring plans to show how those indicators are being tracked over time. As I mentioned already, embedded within the approach is very important to have a participatory benefit sharing mechanism where the local communities and other participants have been involved in the design process of this mechanism. In terms of the technical components, the methodology requires a demonstration of additionality, a core principle that we are building on from the voluntary carbon market, and then a standardized approach to quantify trends in biodiversity, measuring change or no change in the biodiversity on site. And finally, it's about the verification and validation requirements. So all our projects need to be audited by third parties. This is really important to ensure that the outcomes have been verified and that are linking to the claims of the purchase of these credits. So I wanted to include a little bit about the background on how we developed the Plan Vivo Biodiversity Standard. Before we even entered into this space, we set out to define some high-level principles for emerging biodiversity markets. In collaboration with Fauna and Flora and Carbon Tanzania, in early January 2023, we outlined some of these core principles. You can look at the detail on our website, but just to highlight that we were trying to appeal to a market that values high-integrity biodiversity credits, and to ensure that these certificates or these credits are not to be used as offsets, but rather to be incentivization for sustainable land use and land management. Of course, we want to also ensure that we're aligning with larger global goals and frameworks, such as the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. More recently, end of last year in October 24, at the COP16 in Cali, Colombia, the International Advisory Panel on Biodiversity Credits, together with World Economic Forum and Biodiversity Credit Alliance, released a framework for high integrity, which includes 21 high integrity principles, of which Plan Vivo and Plan Vivo projects are very aligned with. Next. So coming back to the Plan Vivo Biodiversity Standard, this is PV Nature. What is it exactly? It is a certification, first and foremost, to enable the issuance of biodiversity certificates or biodiversity credits. It's an instrument or a mechanism that allows access or makes nature markets accessible by indigenous peoples and local communities, and also enables the finance to be channeled to these people so that we can mobilize resources and incentivize conservation and restoration of biodiversity. So this flow diagram at the bottom of the slide here is to illustrate the collaborative process through which the standard was developed. Initially, we had multiple working groups looking at technical and market-based components of releasing this standard, gathering input from the ground, so projects across the world providing on-the-ground perspectives, receiving feedback through public consultations and methodology reviews. And as I said, it was a very collaborative and partnership-based process. Many of them are listed here, many of them not listed here as well. So it's been a joint effort, and ensuring continuous alignment with wider frameworks such as the Biodiversity Credit Alliance, the World Economic Forum, and the IAPB, as I mentioned already in the previous slide. So that's, I will pause now and hand it to Diana to talk more about the methodology and technical aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Can we appreciate Tara? Are we following, or she's been quick? We are following? Okay. Yes, so I'm going to continue from where she stopped. And just to go into the methodology. So she has given the general background about the standard, and now it's getting simpler with my presentation. So how do we quantify the biodiversity? As she has already mentioned about the methodology and the requirements, but we ensure that the certificate that we give, because the biodiversity credits are given in forms of certificates. So the certificate should represent a positive biodiversity outcome. We measure the changes in biodiversity and award certificates to positive outcomes. And these achieved through restoration or conservation, based on what your project is. The methodology describes the effort required to quantify biodiversity. So it's not that the methodology will measure all the biodiversity, but it just needs to measure some biodiversity just to quantify the certificate. But the project can do more biodiversity assessments, but some of the assessments are the ones used to quantify the certificates. So when we have a project that has, for example, 10 methods or 10 taxa that it's quantifying, we don't need all that. It just needs to get a few of the taxa that would be used to quantify the certificate. As I told you, it depends whether your project is a conservation project or it's a restoration project. The conservation projects, we assess them based on the area meeting the key biodiversity area criteria. So that's where your project will become a conservation project. If it meets at least one key biodiversity area criteria, these are standard. They can be gotten from the BirdLife International website, but we also provide them on our website for our projects. So your project must meet at least one criteria in the key biodiversity area criteria or 2 important plant area criteria for it to qualify to be a conservation project. So if your project is eligible for conservation, you will do conservation. If it's not eligible, then you'll do, it will be a restoration project. A restoration project just requires you to restore. So your change in biodiversity will come from the restoration activities that you do on your site. So the triggered criteria if you know the KBA or IPA criteria, they have species or other requirements that trigger that site to be one of them. So when your site is triggered by one of these, you'll be monitoring the trigger annually, so that you keep track of what's going on with that trigger, and to ensure the long-term management of that high-value biodiversity, especially in the conservation projects. So when your project is a conservation project, what you're concerned with is conserving the areas. What the project's aim to is to conserve areas with existing high biodiversity value. If your project is restoration, then it means that your site was degraded and then you want to restore it. So if your site is, for example, national parks, most of the national parks wouldn't qualify for restoration because most of them are at a site that we assume doesn't need restoration. But for most of the degraded sites outside protected areas would be restoration projects, because they would need restoration for it to conserve enough biodiversity. If a restoration project goes on for years, it reaches a time when there is no additionality in what you're restoring, then it will become a conservation project. But when you're starting, your project should be either conservation or restoration, although we also accept combined projects which have both restoration and conservation, but you have to show the additionality. What effort is being done for conservation? What effort are you adding for restoration? So for all these, whatever methods you choose, they should ensure community engagement in biodiversity monitoring. This is very important because, as Toro told you, the Plan Vivo projects, in Plan Vivo project, we really front community engagement, because the benefits should reach the communities who are restoring the sites. And then the methods that you use should be scalable, feasible over time. When you have a pilot site, these methods that you choose should be able to apply in other sites without changing much, but also feasible. Don't pick something that you won't manage to implement. The data should be auditable by independent third parties. This is to maintain the standard and to ensure equitability in all projects that are that we have or that exist in the globe. And the method should be they should be evidence-based. They shouldn't be just assumptions. Science needs evidence. So your method should have evidence that this was conducted at this time on this date in this area and it produced this. So you must have evidence of what you're monitoring in your site. And the results that are obtained should be comparable and repeatable. We deal with many sites across the globe. So the results should be comparable over space and over time. And they should be consistent. And then they should minimize the opportunity to cheat the system. That's why we encourage automated methods where the system can't be easily cheated by whatever project, and they should be consistent and they should be comparable over the different projects. So how do we measure the impact? The impact is measured through species data, but also habitat data. This is measured annually. The species data can be any taxa of your choice, as long as it makes sense to your project. These are actually selected by the project itself, although we have the birds and lower plants that must be assessed for each site, for every project. But the rest, the project selects by themselves, but it should make sense to your project. Measured using digital data recorders. As I told you, we need to minimize the probability of cheating the system. So the project should be ready to use automated recorders like camera traps and acoustic monitors. Camera traps take the footage photos or videos. And then audio mounts will take the sound, will record the sound of whatever is present in your site. And also satellite imagery and drone technology. This will measure the habitat changes in your site. Then data is analyzed by machine learning platform and human experts with relevant tested expertise in the species and habitats of the project area. So each project is encouraged to give us their experts. If your project is dealing with birds in Uganda, you're encouraged to give us experts in identifying birds in your area. And we take those into our technical teams, and they help us in the machine learning part of the analysis of the data. And tracking general trend in ecosystem health. The methods that we use tracks the changes in ecosystem health. It combines the taxa, the birds, the plants, whatever you've measured to the habitat, and we get a metric that combines all that. So the change that we are looking for is the change in habitat health. Habitat health means the animals, the plants, the air, whatever is in that ecosystem. And then the change that we measure is a percentage change per hectare per year. So the unit is measured just per hectare per year. That's the unit that we use in measuring the impact. If I go into details, as I told you, we include both species and habitat data. But in the species, we require at least four taxa groups. As I told you, the compulsory taxa are birds and lower plants below 2 meters. But then on those two, you add whatever taxa you want as your project that makes sense to your project. So we require at least 4 target groups in monitoring for us to be able to quantify the certificates. And that's for the terrestrial sites. For the marine sites, we consider benthic vegetation and all sessile invertebrates and fish. So these are also, we just suggest, and then you as a project, you tell us what you're ready to monitor. And then we discuss and agree if it makes sense to the project and if it makes sense to the methodology. Yeah, these ones I've done. I've already told you the data should be auditable and collected through digital recorders. But also we have to include spatiotemporal metadata, which is the time. As I told you, it should be auditable. Time, date, geolocation, all those have to be attached to your data. And the sampling is annually, and we consider both distance and habitat stratification. So if your site has wetlands, has forest, has grassland, we make sure that you collect data in all those stratified habitats for us to make sure that we are quantifying all the biodiversity that can be found on your site, to make sure that the credits that you get are what you have really worked for. How we assess the biodiversity change over time. We use a 5-pillar matrix, and this pillar metric has both species data and habitat data. The species data is species richness, diversity, and dissimilarity. And then the habitat data is habitat health and the spatial structure of the habitat. All this is done annually except the habitat spatial structure, which is monitored every 5 years. This is using the satellite imagery. So it's done every 5 years. The rest are done every year, once every year. So these are aggregated into one metric. Then one metric will determine how many PVBCs are Plan Vivo Biodiversity certificates. So the metric that you get will determine how many certificates you have. The metric combines all the 5 pillars. As I told you, we need one figure which combines everything. We need to assess the ecosystem health. So for ecosystem health, we consider all the species, whether it's plants or animals, So we combine that into one multimetric. This one multimetric figure is what determines how many certificates you have. And as I told you, the habitat, we have 3 species pillars, which is pillar 1, 2, and 3. And these are collected from the biodiversity data. Then pillar 4 and 5 are habitat data that are obtained from satellite data. So this analysis for us, if you have a project, your project will collect that data, and then we hand over the data to Pivotal. Pivotal are our data experts. And then the data will go through the Pivotal platform, which has both a machine learning and human experts to identify the species. And then they'll analyze and then give us a multimetric, which is calculated from the Pivotal platform. So the multimetrics is handed over to Plan Vivo, and then Plan Vivo will determine how many certificates you have based on the multimetric figure that you have obtained. So the details behind this are in a platform, which as a project is shared between you and Pivotal, and you see what's going on as the process goes until you get your multimetric, which is handed over to Plan Vivo, and then you'll see how many certificates that you get when Plan Vivo gives you the information. This is just a detail of what I've just said. So as I told you, we have 2 projects. We have the conservation project, which rewards with conservation certificates. And then we have restoration project, which rewards restoration certificates. A conservation certificate is a reward to a site for maintaining its baseline. So when you do a baseline and you have 3 species, and that's the baseline that you've started with, you will earn a certificate every time your site has 3 species. And this is done annually. So if your multimetric was 3 at the baseline, every time you maintain that, you'll earn a certificate. But for our restoration certificate, the reward is for a site that gains a 1% biodiversity gain every year per hectare. So for a restoration, you need a 1% increase in your biodiversity per hectare per year. While for conservation certificates, you just need to maintain your baseline. So that's the difference between the 2 projects. So one Plan Vivo biodiversity certificate is an evidence-based outcome for biodiversity, climate, and communities. As I told you, Plan Vivo works in a holistic way where we consider the climate, we consider the communities, we consider biodiversity. The biodiversity certificate should be additional and verifiable. So it's something that you have to do something to earn a certificate, whether it's conservation or restoration. For conservation, you might think you're not going to do anything, but if you don't do anything, you'll gain a negative figure. And when you gain a negative figure, you won't earn your certificate. Because for conservation, you have to maintain the baseline. So you must do something to earn a certificate every year. And as I told you, it's a percentage change per hectare per year for a certificate. And what's the process for certification? So this one Tora had already said, but I'll just go through. You have to demonstrate additionality through barrier analysis, including accounting for threats. The additionality is what I've just explained. What additional effort have you added? That's something that you have done that wouldn't have been done if you weren't there in that site. So that additionality is very key in the biocredits projects. If you can't demonstrate additionality, then it's difficult for you to be approved for a biocredits project. It has to have a realistic theory of change and the project logic. The project logic should flow very well in line with the theory of change, so that the communities will understand and also the other implementers will understand. And your project should demonstrate the capacity to conduct detailed community engagement. This is very important, and we keep on stressing it, because if your project can't demonstrate community engagement, community benefits, then it's difficult for it to qualify to be certified by Plan Vivo. So the pathway for our project certification is this. We start with an eligibility check. An eligibility check is where you fill a form, a prospective project form, just to check whether you should spend time in developing a proposal. So you just fill in a form. We check whether you're a restoration project, are you a conservation project, do you have the capacity, do you have sources of capacity, do you have the funding, do you have where to get help if you don't have it, do you even know what help you need? So we just check those basics in the eligibility check, and when you pass that one, you go to the PIN stage. The project idea note stage is where you develop the starting proposal. So the starting proposal is just to show not detailed, but what you're going to do, what your plan is. So this will tell us whether you should proceed to the real proposal stage. So if you pass that one, then you go on to the project design document stage. Now this one gives the details with evidence of what you're going to do. But as we are developing the project certification process has two lanes. One lane, the one I've been describing, is one that is done by Plan Vivo. Then we have the second lane, which is done by Pivotal. As I told you, Pivotal are methodology partners. And these ones will be checking. We work with them to check your methodology. Do you know what you want to do? Do you have the capacity to do it? Is your site capable of giving you the certificates that you hope you're going to get? So for them, they check the methodology, the site selection, sampling site, as Plan Vivo deals with the technical bits of the project. So after your project design document is approved, then it goes to the technical review panel. Now that's why I was telling you to give us some experts. The technical review panel is composed of experts in the fields of biodiversity. So if any of you here is willing to be a technical expert, please, you're welcome to contact us. The technical experts just check the technical issues in the project. If I say I'm going to monitor birds and then I say I'm going to use a drone, I mean the technical expert should tell this project that, you know what, this can't work, or this is very okay. So they give us technical advice for the projects that we have. And then the third-party validation and registration team also verifies the project. As I told you, it has to be verifiable, it has to be additional, it has to be auditable. So these ones are the ones that help us. So the project has to go through that before it is approved. After it is approved by the validation and registration team, then you start the project. And you start the project by doing the baseline, and then you do annual monitoring. The data collection is done only once a year. We just require a one figure from one project per year for a project to earn its certificates. And then, as I told you, it has to go through a third-party verification every 5 years. This is the same for our actually, all this is picked from the PV climate standard that Toro talked about. And that's it from me for now. And then I'll welcome Toro to take us through the market opportunities. As I told you, we are dealing with biodiversity credits. Many of you have heard about the carbon credits, but also the biodiversity projects also earn biodiversity credits. And yes, they need markets. They need to be sold for us to get the money to take back to the communities. So Toro will take us through the market opportunities that we have so far before I come back to give you an example of a real project. Thank you so much. Toro,
Thank you, Dan.
back.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of detail covered there. Maybe just to add one point is that Plan Vivo operate a very supportive and iterative process. So although there's lots of details, steps, and the process may seem lengthy, we are there to support throughout. And of course, there's lots of guidance, templates, and we are always available to discuss if you are interested. So this next part of the talk, I wanted to, or we wanted to give you a bit of a bigger picture. Where is this market going, and kind of who are the likely buyers, so that you can see the opportunity for this space. Next. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I wanted to highlight, importantly for Plan Vivo, but it should be known throughout, that there are fundamental interconnectedness between climate, biodiversity, and people, and that businesses should realize that these dependencies are there throughout, and the risks, nature-related risks, are real for these businesses. Most of all, businesses will have impacts on biodiversity. They will need continued access to different types of markets, and they will need to comply with emerging and future regulation. So ensuring that there is this connectedness and understanding that these three pillars operate together is fundamental at the beginning of a business's journey towards nature positive or risk mitigation. Next slide, please. So when we start thinking about how a business will be considering biodiversity, they may be starting to develop an internal business nature strategy or a sustainable strategy, and outlining key progress indicators within their nature positive journey. And that's where we see the opportunity to integrate voluntary biodiversity credits, but importantly, to ensure that this market is funding the right thing from the beginning. For businesses to start thinking about this, they need to understand the why. Why should they engage? Why is it important for them? After that, they need to understand how to engage, where to procure the right certificates or the right credits, and under which mechanisms, some of which we already talked about, but I will highlight again. And finally, you need to provide them a pathway to ensure that the efforts they make are leading to nature positive outcomes. Next, please. So just to touch a little bit more on why businesses or companies should be thinking about purchasing biodiversity credits or biodiversity certificates. The first is around improved or building resilience. Importantly, for managing dependencies around nature, either within value or supply chains or other operational aspects of your business. Secondly is around risk mitigation. This is a big area, especially ensuring we're managing the cost of activities. Businesses want to reduce the chance of low productivity and high costs, and protecting, enhancing, and restoring biodiversity can reduce these risks, material risks. Companies want to have improved ratings, mainly for their shareholders, where they can manage the cost of the capital within their value or supply chains. They also want to have a good rate of return, either through access to markets, new and existing markets, or also through the production of new market products. And then it's around reputational improvement. So gaining competitive advantages through certified nature positive commitments. By supporting high integrity projects, you're able to communicate improved reputation to your business. And last but not least, as we all know, and learning from the climate world, regulation will emerge and is already emerging. So allowing businesses to align with these emerging regulations is really important. Some of which are voluntary, others are more mandatory, and aligning with global goals. So under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, there are country-level biodiversity action plans required, known as NBSAPs, which also provide an opportunity to integrate purchase of biodiversity certificates. Next, please. So after the business has started to think about why, why should they purchase and why should they be thinking about biodiversity? They need to understand how to use these certificates and which claims are associated to them. The first is around reduced direct impact of operations, and this must be at a local to local level. The second is around improved or enhancement within a value chain, also known as insetting. Not necessarily directly, but it could be regionally or or nationally within the country. The third is around beyond value chain enhancement. So a company might already be very strong on repairing and restoring of operations within what is known as the mitigation hierarchy. And then they want to go beyond that. And then that opportunity gives them beyond value chain enhancement opportunities. And then finally is around nature enhanced service offerings. So being able to couple products and other offerings of your business with nature commitments. So now I've explained the why, I need to explain the how. How do businesses enter into this space? And if we want to align with high integrity, there are certain principles around what type of certificates or what type of credits to purchase. For us, the principles are really around ensuring those certificates represent holistic impact. We can't stress this enough because it doesn't just lie at the project level, it lies at the company level as well, ensuring climate, nature, and people are embedded together in the impact. Ensuring the approach is evidence-based so that we can really have verified outcomes for these projects. So not just claims associated with impact, but evidence-based claims. And then we want to be able to track the change that is happening on the ground. So as Diana explained, we have a methodology to do this. It's informed by best practice by the scientific community who have been measuring biodiversity using well-known metrics for tracking ecosystem change, but ensuring there is space to combine that with local knowledge and local indicators, bridging that gap between Western science and indigenous knowledge. And finally, just one more point on that, and I think we haven't stressed it enough, is around benefit sharing. So importantly, to integrate equitable benefit sharing within the approach and transparency on how that process has been developed. Next. So continuing on the thinking about how businesses should be thinking about buying these certificates and the process through which the certificates are generated. For Plan Vivo, the process should be through community-led projects. Unless they are integrated with the people on the ground, we can't guarantee long-term impact, and that is really important. We want to ensure that they are certified, so they are being issued through independent standards like Plan Vivo, but there are others out there as well. And by issuing them through independent standards means that you are allowing independence in different aspects of the certification process, creating integrity and removing biases, including that verification process by auditors or third-party auditors. And we've already mentioned that they need to include safeguards with reasonable mitigation plans around the risks, both environmental and social. And finally, the credits should be issued through a registry. This is important because it's an independent registry that enables tracking of how the credits are used, the transactions and the claims associated with those purchases. So it's very important to have that traceability. Next. Okay, so I wanted to show here just a brief slide on the sort of pipeline projects for PV Nature. These are our first cohort of projects, globally spread, conserving and restoring different landscapes and even some marine ones, conserving and restoring seascapes. They are all led by local NGOs or local partners working with communities. and are doing really great work around the landscape they work in. And if you're interested in any of these projects, please reach out to us. But to give you more insight into a more local project to Uganda, I'll hand it back to Diana to show the case study of the EcoTrust restoration project. Thank you.
Thank you, Toro. Before I continue, I would like to recognize the presence of the Executive Director, Nature Uganda. We apologize for starting without you, but yes. I don't know whether I want to come and take your seat or... Okay. Okay, so I'll give you an example, just a snapshot of one of the projects that we have. We have one in Uganda, and that's what I want to give you, just a brief to show that these things are possible. They are not science, they are practical. We have the Budongo-Bugoma Corridor project by EcoTrust. This is in the Albertine Rift. And it's focusing on restoring the linkages between the forest linkages. We call them linkages because they are linking several, if I remember how to use this technology. Yeah, they are linking several scattered small forests. So the red ones are the linkages. These are degraded sites, previous forest. But they link, this is Budongo, this is Bugoma down here. But we have several scattered small projects in here. And then we have these linkages. Okay, yeah. Yes, we have the linkages that connect the forests. These linkages support biodiversity. We have mainly the eastern chimpanzees moving across from Budongo to Bugoma, but in here we have community land. All these ones are community settlements. So our aim is to restore these linkages so that the wildlife, not only chimpanzees, but all the wildlife that we have here, including the elephants, they have areas to move through without disturbing the communities, and thus reducing the human-wildlife conflict within the landscape. So as EcoTrust, we work with other NGOs, other parties in this landscape, and we're not doing this alone. It's a joint effort. But for now, for us as EcoTrust, we are focusing on linkage 2 and linkage 5 and 6 and 7. Up here, we have several community-owned land, the community land associations that we work with. They support the conservation of their sites, of their forests. And then down here, we have land that we purchased as EcoTrust. And it's held in trust for conservation. So it's mainly around riverine sites. And that's where the Biocredits project is happening. So the project is in linkage 5, 6, 7, and then in linkage 2. That's the pilot project. So it's a pilot, but we hope to expand within this landscape, but also in other areas that we work. EcoTrust works in all parts of the country. We have foot in all areas of the country. So we hope that this pilot can be expanded, and this Biocredits project can also be expanded. Okay, so as we've already informed you, Plan Vivo projects mainly hinged on community participation, community benefits. So all the projects for Plan Vivo are community designed, community owned, and community led. And that's what we have in the EcoTrust project. So our business case is mainly focusing on communities. They develop, they design their projects, they own it, and they lead the project. And they are responsible for the restoration because, yes, it's their land. Although EcoTrust is also part of the community because of the land that we own, but it's also managed by the communities around because still it's them that benefit from this land. So we purchased it in trust. We hold it in trust, but the benefits still go to the community, mainly for their livelihood improvement. As I told you, yes, it's community owned. The land belongs to the community. All the benefits that come from this biodiversity conservation and the restoration belong to the community, and also the credits that accrued from this also belong to the community. But also they are co-investors because yes, they give the land for the project. Community design, this project is designed by the community through a program, the Gender Action Learning System Methodology Program. We have a program in EcoTrust, which we call the girls, technology. Slow down. Okay. Yeah, so the girls methodology ensures maximum participation of communities, and we encourage organizations or partners working with communities to apply this. It has worked for us, and we are sure it works with communities. If you want to engage communities to your maximum in a project, this is a very good tool to use. It has several tools, and you apply which tool you want at whatever point that works for you. So one of the tools that we use is the Vision Road Journey. This Vision Road Journey helps the communities to develop their visions. What you need to do, for us as EcoTrust, we just facilitate, get the information from the communities, but they develop their Vision Road Journeys. They gain a sense of belonging, they focus as a group, and they decide what they are going to do. And then you, as an NGO, as an external party, you support the implementation of their vision. And the methodology encourages full participation of the communities. So it's what we've used, and it's what we are using to develop the theory of change, the challenges. We use the challenge action tree. It's also a tool that we use. We use the resource map for the communities to identify the resources they have, identify what they have, what they can use in their land, but also to develop the indicators for monitoring. So this is the Vision Road Journey that I was talking about. Now this vision tells what the communities want to do. This is the vision. This is from Bineneza, one of the groups that we work with. So what you see here is their vision. We don't use English. We use eyes. So they decide to draw what they understand, but they also make you understand because you're facilitating. So they tell you what they want to do. This is where they are right now. So they tell you we are here, but we want to go here. And in here are the things that we need to help us reach here. Up here, we have the people that are going to help us. Down here, we have the challenges that we are facing. When you give this Vision Road Journey to the Bineneza group, they understand exactly what they want to do. These are the things like the parties, EcoTrust should be around here, the donors should be around here, what the support that they have or they expect that will help them reach their vision, and then the challenges that they are going to face. So these challenges will inform the threats of the project, and then these ones will inform the resources that we have. Then this area here will give us the activities that we need to do to achieve the vision. So from this vision, this is for another group. This is Ongo. So these are from different groups, but I just brought the examples. They are basically similar, but when you give this to another community, it might not understand because it's not theirs. So this is owned by the community. And when the vision is owned by the community, that means the project is going to be owned by the community. So this is where we get the theory of change. For us as Eco Trusts, we sit down, discuss with the communities what what all this is, and we turn it into words. When you turn it into that, then you get the theory of change. So this is how we developed the project document for the biocredits project. So we did this for all the groups in the landscape, and then we came up with the project document. It has the threats, it has the activities, it has the challenges, it has where the communities want to go, how they are going to go there. So that's where we get the theory of change for the community. So that's how we get these projects to be owned by the community. Whatever we are doing in the biocredits project is not for us as EcoTrust, but it's for the community, and the benefits belong to the community. So this is the process that I've actually told you about. So this is where we are coming from, the community owned, and we develop the visions of the community, and this is the theory of change that we develop from what the community has given us. And this one also has, it has what they are going to monitor, what threats they are facing, how they are going to monitor it, and it also has the indicators that will help us check the change in biodiversity. All this is done guided by a manual. This is a community monitoring manual that we use for all the communities. So it has the basis for all that I'm talking about. And then these are some of the indicators that the communities get. So the communities will get their individual indicators. They'll have birds, but not all communities will have sunbirds. So each community will select the indicators in their own language that they understand and they are sure that they have on their site. And that's what they are going to monitor. For us as EcoTrust, we understand. We overlay our monitoring over this, but the communities are also doing their monitoring, that which they understand as communities. So we combine all this for us to get the story, the biocredit story, and then that will help us get the crediting and the money that we are hoping for. And then this one I already explained. So the indicators that we are monitoring here in both methods will help us inform the multimetric that I described earlier on. So the biocredits project for EcoTrust is just a layer. It's a layer added to the existing community-based monitoring program for the communities. So for them, they monitor what they understand. For us, we overlay our science over their monitoring. And together we have the information that we need for a good project. It generates extra revenue for this from the sale of biocredits. As I told you, yes, that's just an addition. And then beneficial for expanding biodiversity-linked livelihoods. So when we monitor the biodiversity, the communities realize what they have. When they're just there, they might not see other things, but when we add the biocredits project, as I told you, the biocredits project uses the automated methods, the camera traps and the audio mounts. Those ones will record the things that you don't see on the transect, the things that move at night when you're not there. But the communities will understand that, oh, we also have this. And when they are developing, for example, their tourism plan, they'll add those in their plan. But also in monitoring the plants, they also identify the plants they didn't have, they identify other threats that they have. So this biocredits project helps in getting the information that they couldn't have gotten, and which helps in expanding their livelihood plan. It's done by the community with technical support, which involves community capacity building. So the identification, the monitoring methods, because even their transect methods are the technical transects that we use as scientists. You train them to move the transect, identify what they see on the transect, measure the trees in the quadrat. They set up their quadrats as we have agreed. Some decide to set plots where they use radius. Some decide to set quadrats, whatever the community wants, because this belongs to the community. We go with that as long as it is standard. That's what we'll go with, and that's what they will monitor. So whatever they tell us is what we train them in. So we build their capacity to be able to manage this and produce the information that will make sense to them and to the globe. Yeah, that one I've said. And also we also train them in the automated equipment, because they are the ones setting this equipment. The role of EcoTrust is to set the equipment up with the specs that we want, and then the equipment is taken to the field, and then the communities will set it up. They will monitor it. The equipment for the project, the audio mount are supposed to stay for 1 week in the field, and then the camera traps for a month. So these communities will be able to monitor and make sure that the equipment are safe and that it's giving us the information that we need. So all that we train the communities to do, they understand, and then they are able to do it for themselves. So the training, yeah, this is the training that I was talking about. And it involves both theory. They have to understand what this is before you give it to them. And then you train them how to hold without damaging it, and then set it up. Here they are setting up the automated equipment, and this is how we set it up in the field. So the communities should be able to choose a good point where this camera trap will be able to get the information that we want, and where this audio mount won't be disturbed by different other noises that are not required. And then also this one is the local normal transect monitoring. And then for the data collection, we still use the Fulcrum app. It's an easy to use app that the communities can easily use on their phones. And then we also share information. So after we collect the information, we have to take it back to the communities. They have to understand what we collected. For the camera traps, it's very easy. Just show them this. Have you ever seen this in your forest? No, we've never seen this. Oh, wow, where did you find it? That one is easy. For the audio mount, we still download and analyze what's there, mainly birds and bats. But then we present it in formats that communities can understand. So this is a dissimilarity tree that just shows the communities where your site is. So when you give this to the communities and you tell them the best for this one, our best forests is Ongo, and so these are like sort of restored at some stage. So we tell them that you who is very far at this stage, we want you to be closer, to move closer to Ongo. That's when we will know that's where you will know that you have restored to some point. Your forest has been restored to some point. So when you see it here and then they say, okay, we'll see what you produce next, they'll all want their forest to be closer to the site that you desire. So we present this to the communities and they understand and they are eager to participate in the community. This is just one of the things that we show, but there are other things that we can do for the communities. And then the money that we get, Toro talked about the benefit sharing. So the money that is obtained, the Plan Vivo standard requires a 40-60 benefit sharing model. The 40 goes to EcoTrust management fees, and then the 60 goes to the community. So that's in the PV climate, the PV climate that has been working very well, and it goes as cash to the communities. For the biocredits program, yes, it still remains a 40-60, but it's not cash because it's meant for restoration activities. So it goes back to the communities in terms of ensuring effective recognition of these protected sites. So we help in the registration, in the restoration actions, in ensuring that they get other livelihoods for them, and these ones are selected by them based on their development plans. All communities have their development plans. So whatever they have, these are some of the livelihoods that we promote. Yes, it's also, the money also goes in monitoring, to support the monitoring. The monitors that monitor the equipment also need like transport, water. So the money is used for such activities, and also for the control activities, the monitoring the threats, but also monitoring and controlling the human wildlife challenges, human wildlife conflict challenges that we face in the land through the Resilience Fund that is held in trust for the communities. Yes, thank you. That's the end of our presentation. Sorry it was long, but it's also a complicated topic. And for any further details, you can scan these QR codes. The green QR code will give you information, will take you to a page that will give you some information on PV Nature, the biodiversity standard. And then the blue QR code will take you to some information about PV climate, the carbon standard. Thank you so much. After hijacking the public talk, I'm looking for where to hand over the microphone to Achille is the Executive Director, Nature Uganda. Can you please come and take over?
They call it throwing you in the deep end of the pool. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, apologies. I couldn't get here in time, but I came in time to listen to the presentation, so I was just behind there. So, but as a start, can you give these presenters of ours a very big applause? This is a brand new topic. My professor, you're most welcome. Professor Banage, you're most welcome to participate in this discussion. This is a brand new topic. Not completely new, but new, because we have heard about credits before. We have heard about carbon credits. There are water credits. There are payment for ecosystem services. It's also a similar mechanism. Now we have got biodiversity credits. So there is a lot of processes going on. And I think my friend in the corner would call most of these alternative financing mechanisms for conservation. That's basically what we are trying to do, looking for resources to sustainably conserve biodiversity or natural resources. So this is one of them. And we thank EcoTrust and Plan Vivo for coming up with this process, but also for accepting to come and share with us this information. So Diana and your team, thank you very much. So, but the process, and Diana agreed, it's a long process. It's not only a long presentation, but it's also a long process. So it's not like you are going to wake up tomorrow and say, okay, I've got a few birds in my compound, I need some money. No, there is a long process to get these credits. And I think we shall take a bit of time to appreciate it. I also have some bit of concern. So if you look at, for those who know Sango Bay, so Sango Bay has a forest, it has a wetland, it has water, and of course it has biodiversity in those processes. So if I was implementing a project in Sango Bay, how do I manage? So do I have to go for biodiversity credits and then go for carbon credits and then go for water credits? Yeah, I think that would add up to more money, but I don't think that's how it works, is it? Maybe you'd help us to understand that. In conservation, we are also as much as possible trying to involve communities, bringing communities to participate directly. So if you are conserving cranes, for example, you want communities at local level to participate. But when you look at this process, it looks like a complicated process for the community, isn't it? There must be an intermediary, is that right? There seems to be want an intermediary to manage this kind of thing. One of the other issues that I've just noted from the presentation is the expense. It looks like when you're going to get started, you need quite a bit of money. You need equipment, you need to do studies and baseline studies and all that kind of thing. And the communities may not afford this. actually even Nature Uganda may not afford this. So who actually pays for startup activities, or for startup expenses? Yeah. I think I'm right in those. I'm just picking them from your from the presentation. And then I have interacted with carbon credits a little bit. And one of the biggest complaints with the carbon credits is that it is cheap. I mean, you are paying a carbon ton for $2 or $3. So how much forest do you need to actually substantively raise enough money? I hope the biodiversity credits will be a little bit more, so that we can count birds, count frogs of my friend Matthias, find insects, put them together, and get some substantial funding for the project. And finally, markets. The markets, we want to know where the market is. So if I start the project, I need to be easy. So in my local way of doing things, if I grow potatoes, when they are ready, I just carry my basket, go to the market, and do what? And sell and get money and go home. That's not how it works. This one has a very long process of making sure that you acquire money. Finally, 60-40%. This is a very good start. It's a very good starting point. But I would like to see 100% for community benefit, not 60-40%. Because basically, they are the communities who have been looking after these things. They are conserving these forests. For us, we are coming there as a conservation organization. So why can't we give 100% to the community? Because these are the guys who actually need these resources. Okay, so this was my understanding when I was at the back there. I hope you have been making notes. Can I also pick any other comment that members may have? May I first also apologize for Dr. Andrew Seguya, who was supposed to be a discussant. He got also stuck. He couldn't make it here this afternoon. He promises he would be happy to come and also give us a presentation about alternative financing mechanism for conservation, because I think he has got quite good knowledge about that. So sorry about that, we shall not have a discussant, but we've got a lot of capacity around to discuss the topic ourselves. So can I take some other comments in addition to what I've done? Let me first pick like 5 so that we don't overwhelm the presenters. Is Tora still online? Oh, okay, very good. So let me pick like 5 and then we run through those, and then we take another set. Can somebody help me run the start with the prof in the corner? I think there is a way you switch it on somehow. Okay, so since we are full house, please make your comment brief, precise, and to the point so that we can get as many people as possible. Yes, Prof.
Thank you so much. The presenters of today, somehow for taking us back to class in a better way. You know, it is never easy, especially to have these talks in the afternoon, but you kept it all engaging. I must appreciate it. Thank you so much. My name is Tadeo Rusoke, a professor of sustainable tourism and natural resource management, and I lead the wildlife clubs of Uganda. Now, one, I would like to appreciate the fact that the way you are working with communities, you are sort of having, you said this money is sort of, is in like a fund whereby it is not directly given to the individuals, Because in 2013, I go in around Bugoma and I was evaluating a project of Chimpanzee Sanctuary Wildlife Conservation Trust on payment for ecosystem services. And I realized the money was directly paid to private forest owners to protect the corridor between Bugoma and Budongo. So what happens? Someone along the corridor protects the forest and they are paid in form of what we call payment for avoided deforestation. But another farmer says, look, the money which is being given is too little. So you find one farm is protecting the corridor, alongside there is also a broken linkage because another farm is not protecting. They believe the money is very little. But when you come up with this particular approach which you are using, I think it is quite good. I have learned a lot, issues of community envisioning and the like. I really want to appreciate. And also, why I really wanted to speak today, I would like to appreciate the young people, those who might be younger than me, for picking interest to participate in this. I see very many students from very many universities. This is good. And like I always tell students, learning not only takes place within the precincts of the classroom. This is real learning. I had to come from Fort Portrait to attend this. So this is good. I really want to thank the young people for this enthusiasm. And you can clap for yourselves. Yes. Sorry, Atils, I'm going to stop here. But I also wanted to comment. What you're doing is akin to what is being done by the Forest Stewardship Council. Then I think also the First Foundation in Mainaro Kibale and the Elgon areas. So thank you so much. I don't have any questions. Main was to appreciate. And like I said, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for those comments. May I add my appreciation for the young teams, the young stars. But you are not young. You are old, but you are younger than us, as that gentleman has mentioned. Thank you very much for coming to participate in this. I think towards the end, we shall give you a schedule for these public talks so that you can just note it on your calendar and make sure that you attend. Okay, any other comment? Okay, there you go.
Thank you so much. And maybe I would first some kind of extend some appreciation for the organizers, Plan Vivo, Nature Uganda, and maybe all the other stakeholders that have helped in convening this. Well, we are at the time where carbon credits, water credits, biodiversity credits is something which is being incorporated into the legal atmosphere of Uganda. Maybe currently there have been the carbon credit policy regulations have been gazetted, which has not been created. The awareness creation in the public is still minimal. Maybe one comment that I would give to the organizers of this is that maybe if they could also get some sessions of creating more awareness about the carbon credit regulations, because it's so much in alignment with the biodiversity, or you may find it is almost exactly the same. So we would urge you, or we implore you, to organize other sessions where the carbon credit regulations can be spread, awareness can be spread in the public. And also I have another comment. Another comment was like the ED Nature Uganda talked about the pricing. Also it talked about like the benefits, and maybe we also have a carbon credit project. It's in a peatland based in Western Uganda. Maybe from what I've learned, maybe I can have something to do what? To add up. Well, first of all, financing the development processes of the carbon credit or the water credit or biodiversity credit project. I think people now who are already in the upper hand atmosphere, like Plan Vivo, Nature Uganda, you need to do a lot, like especially getting more investors. let's say, for instance, developing a water credit or biodiversity credit project requires almost like $100,000. This is something which is very huge. And we have faced it. I personally have faced it at our organization. We have faced it in looking for investors to come up and help us develop that project. So we request you can do a lot, because for you already well placed, you're much more in more advantageous position to get more investors, especially from the international arena, because they are there, and then get them to support the upcoming projects. And then secondly, on the issue of maybe the pricing, well, my finding is that the credits can be priced depending on the nature or the quality of the project. Let's say, for instance, if the project is in the nature-based solutions, let's say peatlands, wetlands, then the credits the pricing is a little bit lenient, and maybe also depending on the market where you have gone. Let's say, for instance, we used to see people who were trading these things were opting for the voluntary arena, and which is much more exploiting. And that's why I think the government is coming in now to put in the regulations. And I hope they won't scare away They won't scare away investors, because if you find also things are not favoring them, then they may also do pull out, like the way we saw in Kenya. Because Kenya did the gazetting for this, but they were not favoring the investors, and then they first pulled down, and then later they rectified, and everything was everything was okay. And then I would also maybe talk on the issue of like benefit.
Okay, summarize.
Okay, benefit. The ED Nature Uganda has talked about like 40%, 60%. Maybe this one also, we shall also try to look into the regulations. The regulations maybe will be tackling much more, a little bit of that. Yeah, but then I would also encourage young people to occupy these spaces.
Thank you very much for those comments. I think just in summary, one is, do we have regulations in place? I think that is, I know the carbon credits, I think there was a bit of work there. I don't know that combines biodiversity as well. Okay, and then he talked about the issue of pricing, and then encouraged young people to occupy this space. But you also put a disclaimer of $100,000. So I don't know how that one works. Yeah, but I think this is a new opportunity for people who want to occupy this space. I will take maybe one more for now, and then we shall first go through the first comments. Yes, sir. You can use this.
Well, thank you so much. Stephen Chinji is my name. A student of Bachelor of Environmental Science, Technology and Management, second year, Chambogo University. We are here under Chambogo University Environmental Management Students Association, KWEMA. It has been a very, very insightful sharing. I've picked key concepts here to inquire more about the point of incentivizing sustainable practices. Biodiversity credits, do they consider, because when you look at the nature of our economy, most of the livelihoods, almost 68% of Ugandans are farmers. Are we incorporating agricultural principles in agricultural production in order to get to this? Or we are looking at conservation? And the question in point is, are farmers also conservationists or not? Thank you. I'm looking at subsistence farmers.
Okay. Good point, I think. So when you're talking about restoration, it looks like you are talking about more of intact habitats, but he's thinking that we can actually involve farmers on their land, that you can actually participate in these processes by integrating farming with conservation, okay, and credits as well. Okay, so let's get some responses. Tora, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so I hope you have, I didn't mark who was asking for who. I hope you made some notes on things that related to your presentation. So if I may start with you and respond to some of the comments that have been raised by the participants.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And thank you again for the opportunity. I also have maybe my colleagues, Diana and Adrien, available to support. I'll start on the question or the comment that was raised around startup costs, initial requirements for investment and capital. This is a really big aspect that we are tackling with our current projects at the moment, many of which are initially supported by grant funding. This concern is driven a lot by the status of the market. And so as we see many companies and many businesses starting to build their nature journey, understanding where nature fits in within their own operations and their strategies, then they can this market starts catalyzing, which then encourages investors to see the opportunity to invest. So unfortunately, there's a slight chicken and egg situation here, which we are trying to demonstrate supply to catalyze demand and so on. However, what we are trying to do really hard is showcase that opportunity to those potential investors by bringing some of these very high integrity projects to the front, to the table, and providing the business case to the investors, to the potential buyers, on why you need to invest now, why it's an opportunity, why it should be an incentive to act now, move early, and be progressive on your thinking around nature, conservation, and restoration of biodiversity. So I agree, it's something we need to continue thinking about, but it's a community level problem. Of course, I take your point. One of the comments was Plan Vivo, Nature Uganda, and others are more ahead in this space. And we are trying to facilitate discussions and education and creating awareness to a lot of the potential investors. Most people think that capacity building is done at the project level, but let me tell you, capacity building is upward process as well, and we need to educate those financial institutions, corporate actors, to understand what it takes to develop these projects, to understand what it means to have high integrity, including benefit sharing. So that leads me to the second point around the pricing, which has come up a few times. For Plan Vivo as a standard body or a certification, we stay outside of the remit around price setting. This is dependent on the project, and like someone raised, it's really centered around the value and the quality of the project. So through our methodology, we have a standardized way of calculating number of certificates, not price, not value. This is set by the project. And what we guide the projects to do is consider the pricing to incorporate at a minimum the cost of operation, the cost of certification, the cost of monitoring, and then the uniqueness of the project. Who are the people implementing the activities? What are the biodiversity they're protecting or restoring? Which species, which ecosystems? This feeds into the value and the biodiversity significance. And importantly, embedded in the price should be the benefit sharing mechanism, because that is the true price of high integrity and high quality. So I think somebody commented on $2 per carbon credit. In this new space, in the new emerging biodiversity market, what we envisage is that there will be a range of pricing. because of the variation in the types of projects, the types of project landscapes, the scale, whether they're terrestrial, whether they're marine, the type of activities, the size of the project. All of these factors will influence the pricing, and it should be the principles behind the pricing that are what people should look for. So ensuring that they are factoring minimum costs to do the work and including benefit sharing, so that we can really encourage long-term impact, that it's not just 1 year payments, but long-term generational change that happens over time. And then just talking a bit more broadly about the market. So as we have learned from the voluntary carbon market and other market mechanisms, these things are a fluid process. There are peaks, there are lows, and we always need to keep on top of creating that awareness, providing good communication and what's happening. As I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of companies are still in the early stages of understanding their impacts, understanding their own climate or nature impacts. And so as they are understanding, they are also starting to develop their business sustainable strategies, their nature strategies, embedding that with many of them have already got climate strategies. And so they will start to pick out key progress indicators, KPIs, that they can align with different biodiversity or nature related targets. And biodiversity credits are one of those mechanisms. But we cannot wait for them to all figure that out. We want to be ready with really strong projects to showcase the potential of this market and build in high integrity and credibility from the start. So I hope that we can have another talk here with Nature Uganda and partners in 3 years, in 4 years, and be having a different conversation about how these projects have progressed and how the capital and finances are now making a change on the ground. I will pass the policy question maybe to Adrien, who maybe can provide a bit more context from the carbon perspective. In terms of biodiversity, at the moment, there isn't that much regulation or policy at a national level, but as we learn from carbon, this will arise. I agree that we should have more discussions with policymakers, more sessions like this with policymakers and other representatives, so that there is that knowledge exchange between practitioners, implementers, and policymakers. Because I think often there's a gap there, or a lag, should I say, which we should try to curtail. So yeah, thank you again, and I hope I covered most of your questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Tola. I hope you are still with us because we are taking another set of questions. You have been recommended to answer the policy question. So and that's about regulation, basically.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have quite a number of policies that are guiding, for example, forest management in Uganda. We have the Forest Act. We have quite a number of guidelines, for example, on collaborative forest management. We have those on wildlife, the Wildlife Act, for example, of 2019. So we have a number of acts or policies that are already in place, and we are complying as a Plan Vivo to those existing ones. Then we have those that are under development, like the carbon markets regulations. I'm not sure if they are yet gazetted or not. We have the PACE, Payment for Ecosystem Service guidelines, which are also being developed. And we hope that once they are out, we'll be able to comply with them, both the PV nature and PV climate standards. The carbon regulations guidelines, for example, are both PV nature and PV climate guidelines. So we hope that we'll comply with them once they are ready. Thank you. There was also a gentleman online, Ivan, who was asking something similar to that. Maybe I can answer that too. Ivan is asking if we will seek regulatory approvals Yes, we've been in Uganda for more than 20 years now as Plan Vivo under the PV climate or PV climate standard. And we've been abiding by all these regulations. So the same will happen and is already happening with the PV Nature project that Diana presented. We've gone through all the necessary regulations to make sure that we comply from the district level to the national level. So it's something that is already happening and will continue to go that way. Then he's also asking, is this a voluntary scheme? Yes, it's operating under the voluntary carbon market. And then he's saying, will the credits be integrated into the 2 certifications? Okay, so we have 2 certifications, one for the climate or the carbon projects, and now this one is for strictly biodiversity certification or biodiversity credits, projects that are generating biodiversity credits. Maybe if you can talk about nesting and to help him understand better how, if a project has 2 PV climate and PV nature, how do they work together? Thank you.
Just before you leave that, now that we don't have any regulation or there are no guidelines, so how do you operate then? How are you doing it? Or should we wait until regulations have been put in place? Because you could be caught out of the law, so to say.
Yes, on that, we've been, as she said, we've been operating for more than 20 years in Uganda under the voluntary carbon scheme. So we are still operating like that because it's a voluntary scheme. It might not be so much affected by the regulations as in stopping or having to get permission to operate. And we have the certifiers, the Plan Vivo. So at least we are following that for now. That's what we are using, and we've been participating in the development of the guidelines, and yeah. So I don't know what will come out, but I don't think we'll be so much affected. But we are operating under the Plan Vivo standard, which is a voluntary scheme, which might not be so much affected by the regulations. Okay. And yeah, I'll continue from there. There are other questions that were raised. We have the mixed. The ED raised a question on the mixed habitat in Sango Bay. For a biodiversity project, as I told you, we consider the heterogeneity of the project. We consider all the stratification in the habitat. So when we are sampling, we'll make sure that we sample all the habitat types that are in that site. And that's why we need habitat maps. Before you do the baseline, we require your habitat maps, stratified habitat maps that tells which types of habitats you have in your site. So many of these sites, to have maximum biodiversity in a site, you can't deal with one habitat. Many of these biodiversity-rich habitats have several habitats within them. So we consider all that and we'll sample all that and we'll consider all that in the crediting. So yes, Sango Bay can be part can be a project site. Communities can own a project. As you saw the process, it could be okay, but it's difficult for the community to own because of the complexity in developing these projects. So we encourage NGOs, CSOs to support these communities. If you're supporting a community, if you're have a project or you have a community of your interest, it would be good for you to support that community to reach the certification, because it's difficult for a community to develop a project, get it approved, get the market, get the buyers, maintain the credits. For a community, it's difficult. And that's why our carbon project still has, it's an eco-trust project, but it's still has the smallholder farmers as the participants, as the landowners, as the project owners. Because the aim is to aggregate the credits, because a buyer won't come to buy 2 credits. A buyer will need bulk credits. And it's difficult for a community member to stand up and start getting those credits that the buyer will be looking for. That's why we aggregate the credits and then support the community through the whole process. And you're sure that your communities will get the credits. So yes, I hope I've also answered that one. There was also a 40-60, why not 100? Because of the process that is involved. There is no NGO that will come and say, me, I'll do this work for free. All NGOs they don't have like a money basket where they get the money. NGOs also look for funding to support them. But for an NGO to support the communities, for the communities to gain from restoration, it's better for that NGO at least to support it, for them to gain something rather than not getting anything. But the NGOs also need to cover their administrative costs. You need all this staff time to make sure that this project, there's someone assigned to developing this project, making sure that it has that quality that will earn its credits. As Toro explained, for the biocredits, for the carbon credits, it's easy to get the price. I've planted my trees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 200 trees. This is the money I'm getting. It's straightforward, sort of straightforward, although still there are calculations. But for the biocredit, it's a different story. You get your multimetric, whatever figure it will be, and then that's just the credits that you're getting. But then the price will depend on how are you telling your story, what's behind that credit. So there's a story behind the credit that will earn it the price. We might get the same credits, but I'll get a better price than yours because my buyer, for example, was interested in the chimps in my site, and your site has no chimps. The buyer will say, like you go to the market, me, I'll give you this 500. It's not what I wanted, but let me just give you, So it depends on how you market your site, how you market your credit. The story attached to that credit will determine the price. So the way you tell the story depends on how you've developed it, and that needs a lot of input. So that's why that 40%, 60% is there for the 40 to manage the administration and make sure the project is a quality project. But then the communities also get their 60%. On the incentivizing sustainable practices, agriculture sites also encouraged to be part of the biocredits program. We encourage the agriculture sites to join the climate program. As I told you, there are two projects in biocredits. We have the conservation and restoration. There's no room for agriculture in there for now, but we have an option. The PV climate projects have agroforestry. You can even have your farm and you have a woodlot. As in, we encourage agriculture in the PV climate standard. For the PV nature standard, it's restoration, conservation, biodiversity conservation. That's what we focus on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you are getting into the story. It is a complicated story, but it's a new story. We shall understand it with the time. Any more comments? Okay, as we get more comments, no, with this carbon credit, because that's the one that has been around, that's the one we know. I planted some trees. So when I went to monitor, they said, by the way, there are some people who buy, they mentioned it in the local language, which is actually air, isn't it? So there are people who said air. I don't know, Diana and Tora, whether you are part of the group that is marketing air, but I'm sure it is something different. I didn't get the money though. So anyway, yes, sir. Anybody tells me the microphone? Let me see how many hands we have. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's first deal with those. Start with the WWF.
Thank you so much, Chair. I want to appreciate first the presenters for the very wonderful submissions. My name is Paul Mlond, working with WWF Uganda Country Program. I have two comments to the presenters. First being the efforts being made by EcoTrust, Nature Uganda, and Plan Vivo to collaborate these initiatives for purposes of enabling government to account better. The other is about the fact that Diana is mobilizing us as CSOs to support community groups. Well, what are you doing to ensure that you collaborate with the other partners as well, who are able to support groups so they reach you at a better level with the better benefits? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul, I don't know, is thinking about, can we have a partnership at national level and work together as a team? Like somebody mentioned earlier, they said Nature Uganda is more advanced and you already have some buyers. We don't have any, but I think that's the point with Paul, that we can work together, those who understand this process better, so that we can collaborate as partners at some level. There was another one in the corner. I should have said you mentioned your name before you, but it's okay. You proceed. This one works.
Okay, thanks so much. My name is Susan Imalingat from Makerere University. I'm doing forestry currently in finalizing. And then first of all, I would like to appreciate the presenters for today. I really appreciate so much in that I'm very happy that what we actually learn is what you people are actually implementing. But then my question or request to you people is that the things we have heard about them in class without practical, but then is there like an opportunity that is available for the young people to actually also be in the field and look at what is happening outside there so that they are able to incorporate with the knowledge that they get from class? Thank you.
In other words, do you have a job, Diana, for to cut the story short? Okay, anybody, there was one somewhere, yes.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Bamwendeza Innocent is my name, one of the students at Cambogo University. Just have a very simple question. You know, what strategies are in place to ensure communities can sustain this conservation stuff, conservation effort, after project funding has ended? Because you know you can start something, and when you stop funding it, it dies there, or it ceases. Or is there any other strategy? As simple as that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, Tola, maybe, I hope you have picked that, the issue of sustainability. I know it came out in the presentations, but you can emphasize that, that point. Dr. Behangana, you had a point as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, where can I start?
Tola,
Maybe
can I just hold on? There's one more comment before you start.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you, Achilles, for giving me this mic. And I thank Plan Vivo and EcoTrust for a good presentation on subject matter for which biodiversity people usually don't go to. I'm excited because it looks like biodiversity has started mattering and going into finance. In the map we got here, there was one area where we saw an initiative in Uganda involved in biodiversity, wildlife conservation, and finance. One dot. And my question here, could we have other initiatives in the country like this where somebody can benchmark? Because if it's new, we need to learn how are you doing it? It would help a lot if we have several others and then we have metrics and then we follow those and ask them once in a while, visit them. How are you doing it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Beangana. Oh, there's another one.
Okay, so I think my hand has been short, so I have not been seen. But my name's Ivan Holly Tumwesje. I'm a student leader for all the students that have come from Chambogo University. So I have my small two questions. The first one is, this is only incorporated by slow conservation and restoration programs. However, these things are directly affected by climate change. So you can't restore when climate is in a poor condition. So how do we go on with that? So my second question has been partially asked by another speaker, but I want to emphasize it. The question is also about how students are engaged. So us as students, we also have different associations in universities. For example, where I come from, Chambogo, we have Kuema, which has been spoken about by another speaker there. So I would wish to know like how Nature Uganda or Plan Vivo engages with this association of students to carry out different projects. Maybe this would help us to get more insight in what is going on in the real world. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Sorry, your hand is not actually short, but we thank you for mobilizing your colleagues to come and participate in the discussion. So before I invite Tola to start us off with this round of questions, there has been a general concern, I may say, that these credits or biodiversity credits is, I'm just going to use ordinary language, you'll excuse me for that, is an excuse for companies to continue polluting. So you buy a few credits and then you continue emitting carbon. But with biodiversity, since this is my area of interest, I would be very much concerned that it should not create that impression that people are buying biodiversity credits to continue polluting, to impact biodiversity. And then I will combine my question with my colleague there, who actually don't have a shorthand, that this biodiversity credits and carbon credits, it's all about geared towards climate change mitigation, isn't it? So I think you also explain, you will help us to connect how biodiversity credits or carbon credits or whatever credits are helping in mitigation or adaptation to climate change. I think that connection didn't come out from the presentation. So I will start with you, Tola, for your comments.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I'm thinking where to start because a lot of these questions are linked to each other. Maybe I can pick up from where Diana left her last comment. I think it's important for us to remember or appreciate the complexities in both nature and climate and in general in managing natural capital or natural resources. There is no single one bullet here. There is no wrong or right approach or one size fits all. There are certain approaches, whether it's carbon credits, biodiversity credits, water credits, or other financial mechanisms that are more suitable to certain areas, or perhaps we have to use combined approaches. So as Diana was saying, if it's a smallholder farmer, subsistence farming, then perhaps, yes, carbon is a good mechanism. Not the only one, but one option. For PV nature, we're looking at initially, our first approach is to look at maintenance of high value biodiversity areas or restoration of natural landscapes. But it's not a one size fits all. And bringing to the point from the colleague from WWF, we have to work together because although we have good models here that we know have been working, there's always space to learn. And we do welcome partnerships, we welcome collaborations because we don't have all the answers, and every ecosystem, scenario, community has differences that we need to learn from. So please do reach out to us. We're very welcome to partnerships, to collaborating and learning from each other. The main point is we're trying to develop an approach that has the potential to be adaptive. Things that we're developing today may not be applicable or suitable in 5 years or in 10 years, especially to the point around climate change. There are things that are unavoidable. We can't control them. But from the beginning, it's important to recognize climate and nature are not separate entities. Climate and nature are together, and they are interlinked with people, our society, our communities. And so, as I was saying before, it's about education from the top to the bottom. And we need to ensure that learning from each other, we're learning on which adaptive management processes can help us be most prepared for things like climate change and other natural disasters that we can't predict. So I think that's generally my comment on partnership and collaboration. It's about working together. And it's also about bringing in the young people. I do agree, we can all do better at this. We as Plan Vivo, maybe we can start to have more in-country discussions with societies, universities, student programs. Because yes, that is the heart of the future of our planet, is our young youth and students. But also for the students, I suggest to not be afraid, to reach out, to go and get what you're believing in and what you're inspired by. Even myself, and common in the field of conservation and environmental education, you have to start often by volunteering your services to the field, creating your network and building your inspiration to where you want to work. But I guarantee that if you reach out and offer your expertise as well as your time, then it will come back to you. And we need to work together on that because the field of conservation science is difficult to find funding. And finally, that brings me to the sustainable funding comment. This is precisely the point of this type of mechanism, is around building in a strategy for maintaining finance after the initial funding ends. We want to be able to empower the communities, the indigenous groups, others, to access these markets on a long-term basis. And that is then how we channel the finance back. But to your point, the ED raised on greenwashing, green hushing, and giving a license for bad practitioners or bad actors to just continue along their negative impact path. This is a big concern for Plan Vivo and very much at the heart of how we're trying to design our process. We can't control everybody, but we can control how our projects are generating credits and what they represent, which means that when the businesses and companies make claims, they have to ensure that they are meeting certain guidelines, that they are also on the progressive path towards nature positive. That means they are already starting to think about their own impacts, their own dependencies on nature before they start buying certificates and buying credits. So we have to have these mechanisms in place to understand why it is that they are purchasing them, what do they want to say about it, and how does that link to their own business operations so we can mitigate risks around greenwashing and greenhushing. I hope I've answered most of the points that have been raised. That is what I had captured. And perhaps over to Diana and Adrien if you want to complement anything I've mentioned.
Thank you very much, Tora. Will I go to Adrien first and you, or Avnath? Okay.
Thank you very much. Mine was on the need for partnership, which Toro has talked about. There's a question on how communities can sustain this work after project funding has ended. And I think the introduction of bio credits or carbon credits speaks to that after the project financing has ended, then communities can continue to get financing either through the sale of bio credits or the sale of carbon credits. And remember, these projects are usually long-term in nature, 30 years and above. So I think that addresses the challenge or the issue that was raised by one of the participants. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to first go back to the questions that were raised previously. There is one, the online question that was asking whether you can have a biodiversity credit project and a climate project. And yes, you can have a biodiversity project and a PV climate project at the same site, which we call stacking, but you need to show additionality. You need to show us that, okay, I'm having this PV climate project, but I also want to add this, and I'm doing this and this and this to earn my credits. But I also have this biodiversity project, and I'm going to do this and this in addition to what I'm doing in the climate. So you need to show us that even though I have this climate project, there is something that can't be done that has to be solved using this biodiversity project. That's why I need this biodiversity project on this side. That's what we call additionality. So you have to prove additionality for your stacking, and then you can have both projects on one side. So that had taken me back. I want to respond to Paul, WWF. WWF, I think, is part of the NACG group, the Northern Albertine Rift Conservation Group. That's a group of NGOs working for the restoration of the Albertine area landscape. So we have that collaboration, and as I showed you that map, it has a link from Budongo to Bugoma. And as I told you, it's not only EcoTrust working in that landscape, it's all the NACG members working in that landscape. So all the NGOs in that landscape are working for the conservation of the landscape. So that's one partnership that we have. And yes, in developing this project as a pilot, it's having many lessons, and we are learning from partners. And as we develop this pilot and we concretize it, then other partners can be able to develop projects. I won't say that will be in one project, but they can have different projects within the landscape, as long as we're not overlapping in the sites, in the locations that we are working in. So different NGOs can be in the same landscape, but working in different sites, but we are all doing biocredits in that landscape. So we are a pilot, and we are doing this publicity because we need projects. We need other people to learn this and then get projects. And that's why we are having such talks. So yes, as EcoTrust, we have a pilot, and we can support all other project NGOs to develop such conservation projects. On involving students at EcoTrust, we have an internship program where mainly in forestry students, because Yeah, most of our work is in restoration. So we normally consult lecturers to give us good students. So we don't just go in for any student. We go in for good students. Our work is high quality. Yes, I have to stress this because you're going to come and you're going to be disappointed. We want quality students who know what they want, because you'll come to us and your instillators and your ties, and then you want to get a job from EcoTrust, and we are going to take you down there in Mbale, in Hoima, and then that's where interns start. And that's in that forestry work is in the forest. So sometimes you get students that can't manage, but as I'm telling you, what we want are quality students that will handle the hardships of forestry measurements. You know what they teach you. I hope they teach you that kind of work in your class. And those are the students that we start with. Most of our work is in assessments, measuring trees, biodiversity assessments. It's all in the field. Less work is in the office, and the offices, we already have staff there. So interns won't be in office. You start from the field, but we normally consult the lecturers and they normally give us good students. So that's where we start. So yes, we have an internship program. It never ends because our work is a lot, especially in the carbon program that has been ongoing. So yes, if you're interested, you can put in your application in EcoTrust. You can go to the EcoTrust website. You can throw in your application, but it has to be approved by your lecturer. So if the lecturer says, nah, this one won't manage, yeah, we won't go there because we don't have time and resources. So yes, the internship opportunities are there, and that's how most of us come to the levels that, as Toro said, most of the good people, most of the good staff in organizations start as volunteers. If you can't volunteer, I'll pray for you, because it's difficult for you to get a good job. Most jobs are gotten from volunteering. So even the Nature Uganda program, it also starts from volunteering. So that's how we start. And yes, that program is there, and yes, you can participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana and Tola and Adrian, for this information. It was quite a long presentation, but very important. As a relatively new topic for most of us, we needed all this detail. And we do welcome this initiative, Biodiversity Credits, in addition to other financing mechanisms. And I think, as my colleague Matthias mentioned, it's good to see that biodiversity is starting to trickle in into the business arena, that biodiversity is now recognized as an important element in climate change mitigation. The discussion has covered very many topics. Some of them we can have even bigger discussion. We talked about policy and regulation. We've talked about sustainability of these initiatives. We've talked about financing of the initiative. We've talked about markets and costs and pricing. We've talked about benefit sharing, which I think, based on the presentation, seems to be a very key and important element of this initiative. We've talked about capacity building and training. And think you have heard that you need to be a very good student. But I think all students are good, isn't it? Yes, I think all students are good. We've talked about partnerships and collaboration, and talking about communities and livelihoods, of course, encompasses all this big topic that we all talk about called poverty alleviation. So thank you very much. And please, members, join me, and we really thank our team. Let's start with Tola, who is online. Thank you very much for finding time to participate in this discussion from far. This is a good thing with technology. So you can participate in a public talk, you can present from anywhere you are in the world, even when you are in the field. You first stop the transact account, present, make a presentation, and then proceed. That's how good technology has become. So Tora, thank you very much. And then,
Thank you.
Secondly, let me get back to our team here from EcoTrust, Adrian, another one who didn't answer questions, but still I think from near there, and Adrian, join me to thank our colleagues who have come and made this presentation. You have heard from some members, some of these topics are big. I mean, you have talked about regulation. It was just a comment about regulation and policy. But it's a whole big area that we can actually organize a presentation, maybe invite Minister of Finance to come and tell us where we are, where they have reached, and what is expected of us as participants in these areas. And all of you, oh, by the way, I should have mentioned, we have got a very large participant online. We have got an online participants, and the questions have been coming in from our colleagues who are monitoring the Zoom. So again, those who are online, thank you very much for participating. But please, next time you come here, come to the room. We want to be part of the meeting. And all of you who have come and participated in this public talk, thank you very much. Thanks for coming. And before I end, Beangana had whispered to me that you wanted to make a small 1-minute comment or announcement. Do you still want to make it, or we can proceed? No, we don't mind. So this is...
Achilles is my ED and introduced me as Matthias Behangana, and I forgot to say where I work from. I'm Dr. Matthias Behangana, and I work at Nature Uganda as a research associate. So research is my field, and my focus is biodiversity research. I'm a botanist, zoology chemist, and my specialty is amphibians and reptiles, herpetology. At Nature Uganda, we think a lot of biodiversity and conservation. And what I wanted to mention is the forthcoming conservation conference in May. Now, watch this space. This month, we're going to announce which date of May that we're going to invite you to send in abstracts and invite you to come and attend a scientific conservation conference based on the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and basically concentrating, telling you what Nature Uganda and other associated partners and other partners have, the information they have collected on data that contributes to targets for 2030 and also for the goals of 2050. The call is open now. The date will be announced and the location will be announced. All of us, scientists, non-scientists, who are involved in conservation of biodiversity, wildlife, biodiversity contributing to very many things as you've had, including livelihoods, anything socio-economic related issues to biodiversity. Start thinking of the topic you can present, the findings you've made, and you can tell the public and we tell the world. We hope to engage the Uganda society, revive it maybe, and revive the Uganda Journal so that the proceedings of that public talk or that scientific conference can be released in our own journal, home-based. Thank you, Edie.
Thank you very much. So in very short words, Nature Uganda will be organizing a scientific conservation conference in May. and the dates will be announced and is inviting you to participate. The call will be made very shortly and the themes will be announced so that then you can come and present at that conference, and the presentations will be hopefully will be published in the Uganda Journal. We are still working on that. Okay, so thank you very much, members. Thank you very much for coming. The next public talk is when? On 3rd April, there will be a new topic, and we shall give you the details on where we shall be. Now, let me explain this, where we shall be. For those who have been participating in public talks, we used to be at the Uganda Museum. You remember? Yes, we used to be at the Uganda Museum. But the Uganda Museum is under renovation. So they are updating it, they are making it better. But this information dissemination must continue. So we keep on moving to wherever there is a good opportunity. So we have been in Makerere, we have been in other institutions. Now we are here. I think we've been here twice. I think this is the second time. So the next venue will be announced. Okay? So, but it is on the 3rd, and the topic will be announced. So thank you very much for coming, and I wish you a very good. The hand is not very short. So is it so burning? Okay. Please excuse me. I stopped at my nearly closing, but
Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity given. I'm Musimeta Dafin, a student at Kampala International University. Before I pass on my information, last time I had promised us that the next talk will be at KI, so I don't know if you have that in the plans. So my issue is about environment. I'm a student of environment at the Kampala International University, and we always attend to these public talks, and my concern is we always host different people, like you always host different people, and in most cases whatever we share here, in most cases people don't get chance like people in the other world, because in most cases it's us who take this information, and some people don't preach the gospel. But me, I have a YouTube channel. I normally meet people and we carry out interviews. So for everyone here, and you feel like you have something to talk about environment, because whatever we are discussing here, it's all about environment. So I have a YouTube channel. People can go and subscribe. I have some few videos. I have not taken long, but I promise it's very outstanding. And for everyone here, please give me a chance to always host you, and we talk more about environment. Thank you.
yes, that's very important. We shouldn't have missed this. This is all dissemination of this information. So, and it also reminds me that Diana and Tora, please, if you can, or if it is okay, we can publish this information or share this information on our website so that those who have not attended can access this. And my colleague Sandra can coordinate that on, so that these presentations can be availed for more information or consultation. So I was about to close. Now allow me. There's another long arm. Yes. Now this is very important. This is a very long arm because we have been working with the partners. So I kind of took everything for granted. It's a public talk, and therefore, but no. This is not a public talk. We have partners in this public talk. So first of all, Nature Uganda provides the platform, but Plan Vivo provided the funding that actually organized this meeting, because coming here is not free and it is not cheap. So it is Plan Vivo that put in money to come and we organize this public talk here. So please join me, and we thank them. And Diana, thank you very much for reminding me because, you know, at one point I learned how to work with donors. So you have to be very careful with donors because otherwise they're not going to give us another opportunity to come here. So please deliver our message that we appreciate so much for their participation and funding. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's stop here and adjourn this public talk to 4th to 3rd of April, and the venue will be announced. Have a nice evening.